solid material typology and characterization of medieval manuscripts and a quantitative codicological tool for dating and localizing them are imperative requirements, of course, for most study areas that rely on medieval manuscript sources. They are particularly vital for codices written in Hebrew script, not necessarily in the Hebrew language, but also the many manuscripts written, for instance, in Arabic, particularly, and partly in vernacular European languages in Hebrew characters. The unique vast dispersion of the production localities of medieval books written in Hebrew script, as you can see on the map, not only the range of areas where medieval Hebrew manuscripts were produced, but also this is also the geocultural entities, the types of books production and text transmission. Images from Central Asia in the west to the east, to England in the west, from Yemen, South Arabia in the south, and the Maghreb to north or central north, Germany in the north. This is the dispersion endangered diversified channels of transmission and resulted in varied textual traditions of the same text. The surviving of some 50,000 medieval codices, there are a lot, of course, of post-medieval, and coupled by fragment of some additional 50,000 codices show different types of the Hebrew script, scribal and technical practices that evolve in each of the geocultural areas, which reflects also, of course, the tradition of the host cultures. Hebrew manuscripts are indeed cross-cultural agents and significant artifacts for studying the history of the handwritten book in all other civilizations around the Mediterranean, predominantly those of Islam and Christianity. Modern Latin paleography, which initiated the multinational enterprise of Manuscripts datés in various European countries, based on the study of those manuscripts that are explicitly dated by their scribes, but include also many datable ones, and contains many assumed localities due to the scarcity of Latin manuscripts with explicit indication of the locality at the date before the 15th century. The aim of the Latin project is to provide script sample. Its volumes hardly present any codicological data. Unlike the European enterprise, the relatively small number of dated Hebrew manuscripts and those with indication of their scribes' names, some 5,500, has made it possible to study almost all of them. In 1965, two young would-be scholars ventured to propose an ambitious and large-scale project in order to set up a typology of the Hebrew manuscript based on a sound methodology. All these dated manuscripts should first be located among some 800 public and private collections worldwide. Then they should be studied and their codicological and scribal features be recorded in situ, where they are kept. The Hebrew Paleography project was established in Jerusalem, sponsored by the Israel Academy of Sciences and Humanities, in cooperation with the Institut de Recherche de l'Histoire des Textes in Paris, and ever since has carried out this worldwide documentation in a thorough and systematic way. In some 250 collections all over the world. After the rich and important Russian collection has been accessible finally, the field work was more or less completed. The Jerusalem branch of the project has constructed a very detailed computerized database of all the recorded quantitative and measurable codicological variables, physical, technical, scribal, and textual features, as well as digitized images of selected pages of each manuscript and scans of its 20-folio A4 field questionnaires. The database, named SfarData, by the way, echoing the Aramaic phrase in Ezra, meaning there the scribe of the kingdom, the chief scribe, and data is a kingdom, so it's multilingual expression, and evolved and expanded over the years and went through many technological transformations since its inception in the age of punch cards, if you know what they were at the beginning of computing. A sophisticated retrieval system of a large number of attributes which allows elaborate data retrieval, quick sorting, endless querying, linking, classification, clustering, and statistical processing has been developed. SfarData presented both in Hebrew and in English. You just have to select your language, and you can, even in the middle of the search, go from Hebrew to English, and can be easily adjusted to any other language or script. I'm, of course, referring to the constant expressions and structure. Provide us with precise tool for typological characterization, historical study, and the ability to identify the provenance and to assess the period, sometimes even identify the scribes of undated and unlocalized manuscripts on the basis of shared codicological parameters and similarity of writing. A few years ago, we started a complex project of converting the database into a free website within the advanced side of the National Library. When in 1965, our project forged tools for the detailed description and recording of all the materiality of dated manuscripts, we decided to encompass all the physical, technical, scribal, and graphic features involved in producing books, known by the term codicological features, associated, of course, with the emergence of this new discipline, codicology, of the multifaceted research of the books in a codex form. This decision was initially motivated by methodological and theoretical considerations following the demand voiced by Latin paleographers since 1950 for the expansion of the scope of paleography, usually confined to the study of the script as a sole criterion for dating, and the introduction of a historical discipline which no longer regards manuscript merely as vessels for transmissions of text or of old scripts, but as cultural products reflecting the social context, the technology, aesthetics of their time and place, and applied sociological and quantitative approach in dealing with populations of codices. In the questionnaire we included as many aspects and features based on our own experience and on sporadic studies of some codicological elements by Latin and Greek paleographers. Thus, in studying the dated manuscript, we recorded in detail all the visible and measurable variables, writing material, inks, wiring, means for ensuring the right order of the codex, ruling techniques and patterns, mise en page, mise en text, exact measurements, line management. Line management is there is line. The definition was coined in Greek codicology, but in Greek and Latin, line manager is very limited, because either you abbreviate words at the end of line, or you divide them. And Jewish scribes develop, unlike unknown in other script culture, develop obsessively. They were obsessed by the producing of even left margins, graphic parts, scriptural element, and auxiliary signs, scribal formulas, etc. We did not and could not know in advance which of these codicological elements might be a determinant, conditioned by time and place. We have therefore preferred to record all of them and to find out at the processing stage which of them, if any, would emerge as typical practices of the time and area of production of a manuscript, and consequently serve as criteria for paleographical identification. Already as our fieldwork was progressing, we realized that not only was our guiding theoretical approach justified, and the assumptions materialized, for we saw that many codicological practices are indeed grouped according to geocultural areas or chronologically, but that the exploiting of this data is vital for Hebrew paleography even more than for the paleography of other scripts, because of the singularity of Jewish history, the great mobility of groups and individuals of the Jewish people, the expulsions of communities and migrations by choice or out of economic necessity, undermine the effectiveness of script typology in identifying the origin of manuscripts, since immigrant, professional, scribe, and copyists alike retain their homeland script. On the other hand, we realize that books produced by immigrant scribes reflect codicological practices of the geocultures regions of their new localities. Thus, the codicological features of a Hebrew manuscript, at least, are essential not only for the comprehensive characterization of a handwritten book, and is a very important tool also in textual criticism, and as a support in an identification of its provenance and date on the ground of the script, but may constitute the sole grounds for identifying the area of production, unlike the script, which may reflect the origin of the scribe and not necessarily actual location. Indeed, more than 20% of all the dated manuscripts were produced by immigrant scribes in their original script, but while working in other territories. I shall now present briefly the SfarData and demonstrate parts of its retrieval system, and I may add that this will be a world premiere of a new version of the database. Even today, they still were adding more downloading some hundreds of first I would like to show you just a glimpse of the 100 codicological variables recorded, accessible, and searchable. So all these are main fields. But if I take, for instance, specific region, of course you will find all these territories. If I take colophon details, I take parchment, you can see all the characterization of just a parchment. And of course, if I take paper, of course, splitting or splittable, and how many layers, chain lines, laid lines, watermarks, zigzag signs, colored paper, etc., etc. If I take another codicological report, something like one of the ruling technique, no, I think it's better to show you. Look how many possibilities you have here, just for one of the hard point ruling technique. Needless to demonstrate retrieving the trivial retrieving, such as manuscript written in certain period, main area. By the way, call marks. Call marks we are able, because of many Hebrew manuscripts, you discuss so long about the problem of diversity of call marks and the problem of retrieving them. In Hebrew manuscript, there are most of the call marks are have also some letters, and not only, and you probably know as well. So in SfarData you can ask for all the call mark, and you never know if there is after the point there is space or no space, and you can get. Or you can ask just for the figure, the digits, and you will sometime you'll find two manuscripts, but you know how to stick. So special countries, names of scribe, patrons, words in the colophon, words in the notes, etc. And just to show you how, let's say, if I want to see how many manuscripts I have produced in Cairo. So it's very simple, but I start from the. And of course, you will find Cairo in various Hebrew versions. But since you have the possibility to make an inquiry in English, so Cairo in English will unify all this different spelling. Okay. So we have 53 manuscripts written in Cairo from 1006, 1008. This is a very famous manuscript. This is a Leningrad, what it's called Leningrad Bible. It's considered one of the most important. I mean, this is the basic of BEIT-ARIÉ of Kale that was, and I'll show you later. This is all kinds of. This is, look at that. This is at one point, but there are others short colophons. All these are colophons, and these are but then you have the codicology. You have all, and I'll show you later. There will be measurement and images, etc., etc. If we go to out of respect to the host, let's see Jerusalem. No, I didn't write it. It's 43 manuscript. The earliest is 989, and I put it in one page. Just you now visited Jerusalem. This is 1989, and you see what of all the rest. But then there is from 1072, and the 1227 is not a manuscript; it's a document. So disregard it. You have a rupture until 1366. Why? Because it was the age Jerusalem was there was no Jewish community in Jerusalem at all this period, and there you have all. Now this is only index, very concise index. From here you can open any manuscript and see all his and I do now now, to honor the Italians here, manuscript in Ferrara. I can select the corpus that I want to. You see, 67 manuscripts produced in Ferrara since 1278. And what is interesting is without opening all the description, but just this concise index, you can see here manuscript type that almost all of them are immigrant scribes, and there are almost all of them written in a Spanish script and not in local Italian script. The result of each search, as I hinted already, or combination of searches can be displayed in a concise table, displays in a concise table, which include basic features like date and the name of the scribe, locality in English and in Hebrew, in spelling of the colophon. And the area, the destination. The destination is a very important thing. But may I tell you that one thing that single out Hebrew production from other productions is that according, thanks to SfarData, more than half of all the dated manuscripts are owner-produced books and not commissioned books, which explain all kinds of problems that we have in the transmission of books. It's not only scholars and educated people copy books for themselves. They regard themselves as the editors more than a copyist. I mean, I distinguish between copyists as owner-produced books and scribes that they are paid, they are hired scribes. And contrary to what one would think, those manuscripts which were copied, were self-copied, are less reliable than the manuscript, the corrupted manuscript by hired scribes. Because corrupted manuscript you can apply certain rules, certain practices, and you can restore some of the corruptions, but you cannot restore a manuscript written, copied by scholars or by educated persons who changed the text, who improved the text, who prepared the copying from collation of 3 other copies, encouraged by Jewish medieval author to take part in the transmission, even to introduce integrated if they think that they have a better explanation, replace the author explanation by their own. And this is something that you cannot restore. Owner, yes, and the material, parchment or paper, and then now, if, for instance, documented transcript. I want the country. I take the dated manuscript from kept in Italian collections, and just to show you, perhaps this was a search of something else, but just to show you that I can, as I told you, I can open and see all the presentation of each manuscript, the codicology of it, colophon details, eras, written form, material, description of the material, ink, quatrain composition, quaternios, quechua signature, ruling, etc., etc. And I can go to measurements, and you find crazy measurements here. You have not only all kinds of measurements, but you have processing of them, all the proportion. See from page width, the proportion of width and height, the text proportion, the page area the text area and the spatial proportion and you name it. And you have formulas, if there are, and script, and images. Now, what's images? It selected a warning about not using the manuscript without permission, of course. And so we have here immediately you have the selected pages, and you have all the fieldwork. There are many paragraphical elements that are not encoded. Maybe some future generation of codicologists will be able to encode line fillers and all kind of peritextual elements, but you can see, of course, them in the questionnaires. All this production. And we also scan here the publication of there are a couple of hundred manuscripts which are included in corpuses of dated Hebrew manuscripts that we published over the years. And so scan of this description, detailed description, are also included here. And since we don't have time, I would jump to a very combination of cluster of in order to so I prepared, because I can show you how to compose such a thing. But let's say this is a cluster of 9 codicological features. When someone who is trying to identify a manuscript, he should select from his model, from his copy of manuscript that he's working on, some conspicuous phenomena. Like here, this is indistinguishable sides of parchment, or hardly indistinguishable side, between hair side and face side. It's composition of quires, with the quaternion in this case, uniform. And in order to rule, you need pricking or some sort to guide the ruling. So there is a pricking on the rows in the outer and inner margin, and you have pricking for major lines too. And there is ruling by plummet, page by page, and the Hebrew, Hebrew is written below the rule line, not unlike Latin. But in some manuscripts there are an additional rule. An additional line is ruled below the last written line. So I run this query of 9 there, and I get 117 manuscripts which share the same. We share all this over there, and of course I can open and I can see even images of the manuscript. of each of them. And this is the famous Worms-Machzo. And moreover, you see it started in 1264, but if I do a statistical chart out of it, I can see what? I can see that apart from one manuscript is uncertain, and now we can even we can spot it. All other manuscripts were written in Ashkenaz. If you want to show it more clearly, you can see the graph. And I finished. I have many examples, but we don't have time for that. I just want to show you statistical search. And let's say I go to mine, which yeah. This is a distribution of the main subject of the manuscript. Look. This is, you can see here, it's a biblical manuscript, it's a commentary on biblical commentaries, the filter 3 is Halacha and Midrash, the fourth is liturgy, the fifth is sciences, grammar and lexicon, philosophy and Kabbalah, and literature and poetry, and miscellaneous and compilations. I can, of course, change it to dates. I can even insert which is, I don't have time to that, but a certain codicological figure, which is, you can find that it's only in Italian manuscript, and you want to know how the emergence and how it spread, and then you can ask for every 10 years a chart, statistics.